So welcome back to another one of my mini summer episodes. So this is just going to be a real quick episode. I'm trying to have a little bit more time for some other things during the summer break. So I'm doing quick little 5-minute-ish episodes each week, and then I'll go back to my regular length episodes, which really aren't that long to begin with, but they're longer than 5 minutes. I'll go back to those in September. So today I just wanted to talk about sinking funds and why I love sinking funds so much. I know I've had other episodes, at least one for sure, maybe a couple, I'm not sure, related to sinking funds. So what a sinking fund is, if you're not familiar, is basically just a small savings account for future expenses that are irregular. Like it could be something that comes, I don't know, like every 3 months or annually, or maybe you just don't know when it's going to come. It could be something that you know is going to happen at some point, but you don't know exactly when. So these are the things that you might want to put money aside to save up for. And it can be just part of your regular checking balance. You could just kind of segregate the money for these various things. You could do an actual regular savings account that you pull from. It really doesn't matter how you structure it, and it doesn't matter how detailed you get. It's more just about putting money aside for things that you know are going to happen so that they don't make you go over budget when they do happen. Before I learned about sinking funds, I used to go over budget always. It was like, why did I even make a budget? I was always so far over because one of these things would happen. Either my Costco membership would renew, or my Amazon Prime membership would renew, or I'd have to take the dogs to the vet, or we'd need a car repair, or whatever it was. These things, something always happened almost every single week, and sometimes it was multiple things. Maybe it was that one of the kids needed to go on a school class trip, and then that same week another one needed new notebooks or supplies for a project, or there was always something coming up, and I somehow always felt that we would have the money when those things came, and then we never did, and it always made me go over budget. So when I discovered about sinking funds, to be putting aside part of my weekly budget for these things so that we had the money when they came, it made things so much easier for me. It definitely took time because obviously I didn't have sinking funds built up. So there was a period of time where obviously these things were still coming up and I was still trying to save. But over the course of time, I've built up so many different sinking funds for things that happen every year and at different times. Like for our annual vet visit, we have 2 dogs, and it cost a fortune to bring them to the vet just for their annual checkup and their shots and everything. I forget, but it's like, I feel like it's like around $600 or $700 where we live for the 2 dogs to get all their annual shots and their exam. So that's a lot of money, but I put aside a small amount every single week out of our weekly spending budget, and when the time comes, I just pay the bill and I don't have to worry about it. I put aside a little bit of money for like a little pizza fund. If we have a busy week and I just am like, you know what, we're ordering out pizza, I put aside just a small amount of money each week, and then that money's there. I put aside a little bit for family fun. I put aside money for I have expenses related to the horses. I put aside money for that. For our pet bills, not even just bills, but like expenses like food and supplies. I would have times in the past where suddenly I'd realize I need like shavings for the guinea pigs, and I need dog food and maybe cat food at the same time, or you know, maybe I need flea and tick supplies all at once, and it would just be like, oh my gosh, all of this came at one time and now we're over budget. Well, now I look at what we spend on an annual basis for those things, and I put aside a little bit each week. So it doesn't matter the timing if they all hit at once or if they come sporadically. There's always some money set aside for those things. And yes, it takes away from my weekly spending budget because I have to allocate those dollars that have to be put aside for these various things. But the reality is that's where the money has to come from. Like it has to come from your budget. So if you're basically spending all of your weekly money that you have available that's not going to other savings accounts or things like that, and you're not accounting for these things, there's really nowhere for it to come from when they happen. So by putting the money aside, you know that you have it and you don't have to worry about it. Even for like car repairs and things like that, if you know you're going to need an oil change 2 times a year or whatever, or to get your tires rotated or whatever general maintenance, it feels so much better to just know that you have the money put aside. And then when the time comes, you just go and you pay for it, and you don't have to worry about, oh great, where is this money coming from? And it really kind of helps you see what you actually have available to spend, because once you've allocated for all these different items, you might be like, wow, I shouldn't maybe be spending as much on these other things as I have been, because I wasn't thinking that I needed to be saving for all of these other expenses that come up throughout the year. And like I said, I've built on it over time. Every time something hits me where all of a sudden, like, oh gosh, I didn't even think about that, I'll say, okay, well, this is a new thing that I need to start putting aside a little bit of money for. Or maybe it's something you need to consider if you have the money for. Maybe you need to stop doing certain things. But most of the things that I have sinking funds for, with the exception of like the little fun items like the family fun and the pizza and candles, I do one for candles, I do one for Bath and Body Works, things like that. Most of them are generally more necessities that you want to make sure you have money set aside for. But if you feel like you're struggling with your budget, just kind of take a look and see like what things are coming up that are causing you to go over budget. And is it something that maybe you could be putting a little bit of money aside for each week? So that's it for this little mini episode. I actually went a little over 5 minutes, but that's okay. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next week with another mini episode. So thank you for checking in for this podcast episode. And don't forget, you can always email me with any questions or suggestions at lolasfrugallife@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Lola's Frugal Life. And you can find a blog post for most of my episodes, and definitely all of my meal plan episodes, at lolasfrugallife.com. You can also join our private listeners group at facebook.com/groups/lolasfrugallife. And if you enjoy the show, please make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen from. And I would love it if you would screenshot the show and tag me on Instagram so I could see you're listening. Also, if you can please take a couple of seconds to rate and review the podcast. Those ratings and reviews are what help the show come up better in search results so that other people can find this podcast. So that will really help me in growing my audience. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have an awesome day.